Hey you guys, what is going on? It is Blue and we are back with another video. As promised, I am going to be going over the Druid Covenant abilities that we can expect in the Shadowlands. I do want to say, as you can see, this is probably a longer video. What I have been hearing, watching videos myself, I do not have beta access. It seems like a lot of people are suggesting that there's only one specific Covenant ability for Feral Druids that you're going to be running. Now, of course, Blizzard comes out to say, hey, well, these Covenant abilities, they have their specific uses. They're really good at some situations and not at others. So I really did want to go ahead and dive into these Covenant abilities so we can be aware of that instead of just going right into Shadowlands and be like, oh, this is the best one for me because it does the most damage. After reading through these and crunching the numbers, like I said, I don't have beta access, but we can create these hypothetical situations, scenarios, where I'm also get collecting data from the beta that I actually am able to, and you guys are going to see. I'll try to make the video as quick as possible, but we can kind of see how these compare one amongst another and DPS values and see their benefits in certain situations and their weaknesses as well. So we're going to go ahead and start off with just reading through all of these Covenant abilities, and I'm going to go ahead and give you my kind of ideas on them and so forth, and then I go ahead and later on I do have a Word document where I did go ahead and crunch all those numbers, and we're going to talk about the numbers later. So we're going to start off with the Kyrian Druid Covenant ability. This one, you guys, is my favorite. Just want to go ahead and say that. I really like this one. This one's really interesting. So choosing this Covenant ability, you get Kindred Spirits. Form a bond with an ally every 1 minute. You may empower the bond for 10 seconds, granting you an effect based on your partner's role and granting them an effect based on your role. I want to say you're going to see this quite often. You may empower the bond for 10 seconds, suggesting that in that 1 minute time interval, you get to pick a time to boost that. That is not the case. I think it is worded poorly here. What it seems to me is Kindred Spirits, you choose this, and just constantly on you, you have a 10-second duration that is constantly going back and forth on a rotation in a 1 minute interval. Okay, so this is probably very easily, this probably can have a weak aura created very easily to show you those 10-second intervals, but from my understanding, there is 0 buttons to press other than activating this ability and choosing your partner. So we are Feral. This is for the Feral community. Energize your bonded partner, granting them 30% of your damage as additional arcane damage, healing, or absorption. Now, do not fret, we are DPS, so this is going to be arcane damage. The reason it says healing or absorption depends on who we choose to partner with. So let's say I choose a healing partner. My damage is going to be converted 30, it's going to be duplicated and then divided by a third, or 30% is going to be given to the healer as additional healing. Let's say I choose a tank, that's going to become as an absorption shield. So that's actually a pretty benefit. But for us, what we want is we're going to pick a DPS partner, probably the highest DPS in your raid, in your group to really benefit. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be giving them a third of our damage during that 10-second window for them. And then what does it say when we pick them? They energize you, granting you 1/3 of their damage as additional arcane damage as well. So very nice. When you think of the Druid Covenant abilities, the thing you have to think about here is essentially you are getting extra damage. It is in 10-second windows, but you are getting extra damage, and then your partner is getting extra damage. So a lot of you guys are going to be thinking when you go through these Covenant abilities, be like, well, this isn't really helping my damage very much, but the ability in general for raid progression is very good because this is giving a lot of extra damage to the boss, even though it might not be just showing up on your DPS meters. This is going to be giving a lot of DPS towards the boss, okay? And now it has an additional effect, Lone Spirit. Form a connection with your inner self. Every 1 minute, you may empower the connection for 10 seconds, granting you an effect based on your role. So connecting, so we're Feral, connect with your inner spirit, increasing damage done by 15% for 10 seconds. So what does that mean? I believe these all coincide together. When you pick your partner, you both are going to be activated at that 10-second during the same time. So your partner activates, and his damage, a third of his damage or 30% of his damage is going to yours. You are also getting a 30% of your damage going to him, but during that 10-second window, your damage is also being increased by 15%. Okay. I really like this one. This one's a very neat ability, but it does come with its downfalls being only 10 seconds and being during a window. So I can imagine, like I said, put this on your highest DPS person in your raid. But for instance, we know probably if the Fire Mage is the top DPSer, might not be the best idea because you want somebody that has consistent damage. For example, like a Fire Mage, we know that a lot of their damage is in really burst windows, and then the rest of their damage is really bad. Now, unless you got a friend that's a Fire Mage that's willing to do his burst in that 10 seconds, which I doubt it, they'll probably have their own ideas of when they're going to do that don't coincide with your 10-second windows. But anyways, just pick somebody that's got consistently high damage. Okay, now we do have signature abilities. These are just minor abilities that come with the Chosen Covenants. So we have Summon Steward. Call your steward to bring you a vial of serenity that can be consumed and restore 20% of your health, remove all curses, disease, poisons, bleed effects. Your steward additionally offers access to a selection of useful amenities, each once per day. Now, I didn't check out the useful amenities. That really doesn't bother me here. I don't care about those ones. The 20%, this is really nice. This is like an extra lockstone. So very good here. I really like this ability. I can't wait to talk about the numbers with you, but this one's really nice. And I don't see anybody talking about that one, so I'm excited to talk about that one with you. Let's move on, though. Venthyr, you gain the ability of Ravenous Frenzy. For 20 seconds, through spells you cast increase your damage, healing, and haste by 2%, stacking. If you spend 1.5 seconds idle, though, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming 3% of your health per stack, stunning you for 1 second, and then ending, of course. Okay, so this one, when I first learned about this ability, very strong. Also, now with the new Berserk changes, super strong. Like, I think about it, I'm just like, wow, this really works with Berserk so well. So if you're not aware of the new Berserk changes for Feral, when you go Berserk, your finishing moves, so your bites or your bleeds, will restore 2 combo points. Let's say as long as they're used with 5 combo points. They will restore 2 combo points, and then your Shred ability is automatically going to do 2 combo points, and then if it crits, it does 3. So really cool that you can go through your rotation. So like essentially, well, late game, if you have a lot of crit, you're probably going to be cruising through your rotation doing bite, shred, and then bite again, shred, bite again, shred. This is going to be a huge DPS cooldown for us as Feral Druids. The thing about that, though, is we are going to be running on our energy over time. You know, of course, during our Tiger's Fury, we're going to, increase our energy to a certain level, but we're going to go again. And the reason because of that is our bites. Our bites just cost a lot of energy. So we're going to get to the point where it's just like, 50 energy, shred, 50 energy, shred, and it's like, okay, I got to wait. And it's just like, you don't really want to be stalling on energy at that time because this is your DPS when you just want to produce as much as you can. This is really going to help. So not only is it going to increase those bites, which is going to be a main source of our damage, but it's also going to be stacking haste. Now, haste, as we know, it's going to help increase our energy. So over time, when we start going this is actually going to prevent us from going on our energy because this is going to be also increasing our haste. Of course, it's going to be affecting our bleeds as well, but this just sounds like a dream to me that coincides with our Berserk, and it has a 3-minute cooldown as well. So this should be used alongside Berserk. Really good. Also, I do want to say a benefit for this one, though, is I know I haven't touched on legendaries, and I will do a video on legendaries, but there is a legendary that reduces our bleeds. This one also, so other than using it during a Berserk window, this one would also coincide really well with AoE pulls. Okay, so I pop this on AoE pulls. Let's say I have the Druid legendary where it reduces my bleeds by 25%. We know so far that there is no target cap for our Primal Wrath. So our Primal Wrath is going to be doing a lot of damage, as we already know that our rips do a lot of damage that comes from Primal Wrath. So we're going to be doing a lot of AoE damage and big pulls. This is only going to help that. One thing is we don't go during our AoE situations. Usually we can just go AoE crazy with Swipe and Primal Wrath. This is just going to help increase our bleeds of our rip damages and help us get through the rotation, get through it really quickly. And then the haste is also going to help those bleeds tick faster along with the legendary. This sounds like a dream for AoE situations. I really like this one. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the numbers later. Let's go down to the signature ability. Door of Shadows. Win through the shadows appearing at the target location. So this is a blink. Pretty nice. A channel blink for 1.5 seconds. Okay, let's look at Necrolord Covenant ability. Adaptive Swarm. 25-second cooldown. This is pretty cool. Command a swarm that heals or deals damage over 12 seconds. So this is a dot to a target and increases the effectiveness of your damage over time effects by 20%. Pretty cool here. Upon expiration, jumps to a target within 25 yards, alternating between friend and foe up to 3 times. So what's interesting about this is it says alternate between friend and foe up to 3 times, but then they also include these images. Like I said before, you guys are probably aware, I do not have beta, but what's interesting because it looks like if this is on this target, right, it's 3, you would expect to have him already be damaged, right, because he would cast it on the target, himself, and then would jump to the target. So it's really interesting that this person's not damaged. But what's most interesting right here is this second picture. So we see that the Druid is injured. So most likely he used this Covenant ability on himself. It jumps to a target, like it reads. It's supposed to jump, alternate for info, right? Jumps to a target, and then jumps back to him. What's interesting is I don't see any of these targets damaged. So what I would expect to think is that this ability is going to try and do a smart cast situation, where instead of jumping from friend to foe, it's going to be like, hey, you know what, I'm going to prioritize healing you instead of jumping at all. Yeah, first you cast it on yourself because you're low, and instead of jumping to an enemy, I'm actually just going to heal you again and heal you a 3rd time because you're so low. You guys, this one to me sounds like PvP. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be probably really liking this effect of the 20% of our bleeds, of our periodic effect abilities, which is our bleeds. I don't think it's going to be that strong. I think going into Shadowlands, I don't think our bleeds are going to be super, super strong, except in AoE situations because of our rip. Of course, mentioned prior with the legendaries of reducing our bleed effects by a certain percentage, by 25%, I believe it is. This would stack well with that, but you do have to understand this is only really hitting 3 targets max, and it sounds like it might also just be jumping to you if you're low. Now, as a Covenant ability, these are pretty big DPS cooldowns for us. You don't want something unreliable as that, and you don't want it... Obviously, the damage is kind of difficult to figure out here. But this really sounds like a PvP talent to me. So unfortunately, I'm not really going to be considering this one or talking about the numbers on this one. But we're going to go over the signature ability as well, which also seems PvP to me. Fleshcraft. Form a shield of flesh and bones over 4 seconds that prevent damage equal to 20% of your max health. Channel near a corpse claims their essence to grow the shield up to 50% of your maximum health. This is most effective against powerful enemies. I don't know if there's a bug here. But I still don't understand this. It says a 10-yard range. Okay, I understand that. Channel for 4 seconds. Okay, so you have to channel for 4 seconds, and then you get your 20% max health, right? And it says cooldown is 2 minutes. I don't understand how long it lasts, because then I hover over the ability, and it reads differently. Form a shield of flesh and bones over 4 seconds that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. So it sounds like it lasts 2 minutes, but we know the cooldown is 2 minutes. So does it actually have a cooldown? Because then channel near a corpse claims their essence and grows the shield up to if they're a dead body. So grow your shield. So it's as if you already had your shield on, and then there's a dead body, and you click it again. I just don't understand it, because it seems like it needs to have a cooldown, which is lower than the effect. I just don't know. I don't know if I made that confusing, or if it's everything's there. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's go on to the Night Fae. So this is the one that everybody's saying is our top damage number, and that this is the one you should only pick. So I do want to kind of talk about this one and the scenarios. So you gain, choosing Night Fae, you gain Covenant, Convoke of the Spirits. Call upon the Night Fae for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid fury of 16 druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. So we're not going to read here because there is a blue post below, but you can just see this this guy going nuts with abilities. So pretty cool there. So we're going to read this whole blue post. Thanks for all the feedback on Convoke the Spirits. It will have a further update in an upcoming build focused on being orientated more around shapeshift forms and include higher value spells associated with each particular form. Most importantly, the spells list is redesigned. It is no longer the same in every form. Spells included in every form: Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, Rejuve, Rake, Thrash. What's interesting about this list is it says spells included in every form. Moonfire we don't have unless we're spec'd into it. So I don't know if choosing this ability, or choosing Night Fae Convoke of the Spirits, obviously it'd be nice if I have the beta test of this. I would just imagine if you have Moonfire talented, you can use this. We do not use Wrath as a feral. We don't even get Wrath if we spec into Boomkin, so I don't think this is an option for us, okay? So let's continue on. In cat form only abilities, we have Ferocious Bite, great, Shred, Tiger's Fury. These are really good ones right here. But I am worried that we are going to share these ones, Ferocious Bite, Shred, Tiger's Fury, with Thrash, Rake, Regrowth, possibly Moonfire if you're running it, which I don't think you're going to be, but that's a discussion for later. Different video. Okay, let's continue on. When used in any given form, spells associated with that form's role are strongly favored. That's a plus. Star Surge, Starfall, and Ferocious Bite don't cost resources. This is a big plus. But what this sentence also makes me worry, though, is Ferocious Bite doesn't cost resources. But wait a minute, what about my Rake, Thrash, and Shred? So does that mean these do use my resources? And then what happens if I go You know, if you guys have been playing Feral for a while, you're going to know that we are not going to be able to cast 16 spells in 4 seconds without going really quickly. So this is a little concerning to me that this sentence right here, where it says only Ferocious Bite does not consume resources. Again, some of you that have the beta probably already know this question. But I would actually expect that using this ability doesn't consume any energy actually at all for us. But please comment below. Look, hopefully somebody can comment and then look for those comments, because that's an answer that definitely needs to be answered. Okay, let's continue. Swiftman doesn't remove a hot. Ferocious Bite does maximum damage. Very good. So it doesn't really matter about the combo points used. Self buffs that don't stack. So Tiger's Fury, Starfall won't override themselves. That's a really key one. A bit of discussion about this ability. One dilemma with it is that while it actually chooses abilities somewhat smartly, it can't claim to do so perfectly. So the tooltip doesn't promise to always choose the optimal ability, but in reality it does much better than random chance. Some things that were true in prior iterations are still true now. So spells that apply dots or hots are favored on targets that don't already have one, and generally won't reapply to targets that do. So this is really good in single target situations, and AoE probably not so much, right? Because this is going to try and thrash targets. Let's say you try to use this in an AoE situation where there's 6 targets, right? So I'm getting at kind of a really crappy scenario here with 6 targets, because we know some of our stuff's not is target capped. So we got 6 targets. We're going to cast, and this guy's going to be trying to thrash and rake everything. And we know as Pharaoh, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I want to thrash and rake all these targets in AoE situations. Um, maybe I would rather. I mean, it probably better just to not use this ability at all in AoE situations, and instead just do your normal rotation with Primal Wrath, because it's probably going to result in more damage. Again, I'll talk about this a little bit more, but this ability to me seems more of a single target use instead of AoE. And I do also want to add something that I heard in the Feral Discord, where somebody said that it's probably better that in AoE situations to go to Boomkin. I'm imagining you're also going to do your thing that buffs the Boomkin forms. I forget what it's called, but it's a 45-second duration. Go into Boomkin form, and all your spells in Boomkin do additional damage. So I'm guessing they'll go Boomkin and they pop this. The interesting thing about that though is we might not have Moonfire. We do not have Wrath. And I don't believe that we have Starfall as well. I'll have to check. But the thing is, when you spec into Boomkin, the Boomkin affinity, we don't actually have a lot of the Boomkin spells. I believe a lot of them are just single target Boomkin spells. So I don't see how that would be a good idea, and then see how that would be better than just our normal rotations with Primal Wrath. So correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But again, this doesn't really seem like a really AoE situations, and it doesn't seem like we would switch into Boomkin to use it to really make it an AoE situation. But anyways, let's continue on. I just apologize for spending so much time. It won't aggro new creatures, great. It won't break CC. Heals will be more favored relatively to other spells if there are low HP targets. This is a bad thing if you have a low tank, right? And then Thresh will be used more often than Bear than Cat. Okay, as always, let us know how it feels on Alpha. Okay, and then you can go into Soul Shape, turn to Vulpin, teleporting 15 yards forward and increasing your movement speed by 50%. You may reactivate Soul Shape every few seconds, teleport again, last 12 seconds or indefinitely while in a rested area. Okay, so this is really cool. Give your Feral even more utility than it has. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers, you guys. So the first thing we are going to cover is our Venthyr abilities. I tried to make this bigger. I apologize if you guys can't see. So Venthyr, we're going to go ahead and crunch the numbers here. Venthyr, we have 20 seconds. Let's say we can cast 18 spells in 20 seconds. And it really does depend on our energy, and it also depends on if we are able to use what I'm going to call cheat spells. So let's say I can use an interrupt. If using an interrupt counts as stacking this mechanic, that'd be great. We're going to pretend that it does not. But what about our defensive spells? Some of our defensive spells don't have a global cooldown. What if I pop those right off the bat just to get these procs flowing? So that would really help. But even so, I did not crunch the numbers with that in effect. But we're going to just look at what I have done, and then you can decide yourself, is this a really good option for me? So let's say we cast our ability. We're going to cast this alongside Berserk, because this is where it's going to be very strong. Single target. So we're going to cast Berserk. Let's say our crit's not very good, so in this particular scenario, we are going to be Shred, Bites. That's going to be our rotation. And then let's say also that Shreds and Bites, since during Berserk, Shreds are benefited by getting the double combo points and blah, 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 help cruise through rotation really quickly, that we're actually not even worrying about our bleeds at all. We're not even worrying about our rip at all, because we're cruising through rotation so quickly that Sabretooth is keeping our rip up. These are hypothetical situations. Okay, so we cast our Berserk, we cast our Venthyr Covenant ability, we Shred. That first original Shred does not have a benefit to it, right? But this is going to benefit the next one. So 2%, 4%, here's our next rotation. So we Bite, here's our next rotation. 6, 8, 10, blah, blah, blah. Each cast is increasing by 2. And we run out. Our last ability is a Bite at 34% increased damage. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Total Shred damage is 192 additional percent. So it's just under 2 additional casts. We're going to go ahead and talk about spell casts here instead of percentages, so this is comparable to the Night Fae ability. So using this Venthyr ability, which is a risk-reward, right? You guys, we do need to understand that this is probably, one of the most difficult Covenant abilities to do, because it is not just damage right off the bat like some of these other ones. There is a risk to it. If you mess up, you're taking damage and you're losing your stacks, okay? Okay, so what we're getting out of doing a perfect performance of this, we're getting just under two extra shreds, and we're getting over 1 bite, 115% of our bite, so just over 1 bite. So in total, we're getting about 3 extra spells. So by using this Covenant ability, by performing it perfectly, we're only benefiting by about 3 extra spells. That's it. So you can compare that right away to the the Night Fae ability, where we're getting 16 casts. This one is only getting us 3. Now, where I think the Venthyr ability is going to perform the best is we know that the Night Fae ability probably is not going to perform very well in AoE situations, whereas the Venthyr ability sounds really, really good in dungeon environments where, I mean, you're going to need a 20-second. You're going to need a lot of mobs, so big pack of mobs that is going to obviously last longer than 20 seconds. A big pack of mobs comes, and you're just going to do your normal feral rotation. I mean, I do need to see the target numbers and then the bleed effects. Okay, so let's say hypothetically, I'm thinking I'm in a dungeon. I'm probably going to want the legend that's increasing, that reduces my bleed effects by a certain percentage. I believe it's 25%. Because this is a big dungeon where AoE packs are, and I'm going to be Primal Wrathing a lot, right? So what would really work well with this one is probably the Venthyr. Big pack comes along. I'm going to use my Venthyr ability. I'm just going to be thrashing. Let's say it's like live, though, right? So with that Covenant ability, I'm going on such a tangent right now. With that Covenant ability, it may make it so, depending on the pack size, it may make it that your rotation is actually just rake, Primal Wrath, rake, Primal Wrath. But anyways, let's say it's like live, where it's just thrash, swipe, Primal Wrath rotation. Very simple rotation, right? This is going to help. This is going to, one, it's going to be giving us a lot of haste. What does haste do? Haste makes our bleeds tick really quickly, right? And then also, we have the legendary that's also making them tick really quickly. So this is really going to help, and this is also just going to be increasing every Primal Wrath, by every time you use Primal Wrath, it's going to be keep on increasing it. So this is just going to be some huge AoE damage that it is unimaginable. One is because a lot of people are already target capped, and another one is just like our Primal Wrath already does so much damage, mixed with that legendary, mixed with this Venthyr Covenant ability, it's going to be off the charts. This is going to make us the top AoE damagers by far. So a lot of people are saying this is trash, don't use it, there's only one Covenant ability. This is the AoE Primal Wrath Covenant ability. Okay, this is the best one by far. Okay, let's continue on now. Okay, so we already know how this compares to Night Fae. Let's go ahead and talk about the Kyrian Covenant ability that nobody's talking about. This one is very easy to crunch the numbers on. Okay, so what I did is I went ahead and took a look at one of the beta testing. I'm going to just say, and I only looked at one video. The average DPS of that video, the average really high single target DPS of that video is 5k. Okay, the video that I was watching, I have no idea which boss it is, but it was a single target boss which occasionally grew ads. The ads were DPS down really quickly, but it was 5k single target, grew to about 5.5k, 5.5k during AoE situations. Once those ads down, cruised back down to 5k. So for this Kyrian ability, I am going to say that 5k is a decent DPS, single target DPS, okay? And on a tangent, from my understanding also, when they do this beta raid testings, they don't even have a lot of good gear. So just take that into effect whenever you're watching this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and crunch the numbers. We know that, let's say this fight lasts 5 minutes, okay? So we know that there's a 10-second buff, a 10-second window, 5-minute fight. So for every minute, so we're going to have 50 seconds of this Kyrian ability being activated. Okay. So we know that we have increased damage by 15% for 50 seconds. So what is that? That is 550 or 750 DPS per second for 50 seconds. Great. 1/3 of my damage in a 50-second window, which is including this 15%, is given to my buddy. Okay, and I'm also going to include another buddy who's doing really good DPS. So Pharaoh's doing well, we're doing 5k, my buddy's also doing 5k. All right, so this individual during the 50-second window is getting my damage, which is buffed by 15%, so 5k plus this 750, so I'm doing 5,750 damage. What is 30% of that? It is 1,897.50. Okay, so he's getting that much damage to him. Now, what damage am I getting for my buddy? Well, my buddy's not getting the buff. He's just doing 5k, so he's giving me 1,650 per second. Now, let's take a look at total damage. So 5k damage for 500 fight or 500 seconds is 1,500,000 total damage done to the boss that I'm doing, right? Now, with the Covenant ability, I'm getting my friend's damage, and I'm getting my damage, which is buffed by 15% for 50 seconds. Okay, so I wrote it here. So the 15% buff for 50 seconds is 37.5, plus my partners, which is total for 50 seconds is 82,000. So my additional damage to the boss is 120,000, which equivalents to 8% extra damage. This Covenant ability alone is giving me 8% more damage. Okay, my friend, he's not getting his. My friend's getting a big one, but he's not getting that 15% buff, right? So his total damage that he's getting is 94,875 additional boss damage, which is equivalent to 6.325% extra damage to the boss. It totals out to be 14.325%, so 214,875. This is quite a big number, you guys. And the way this works is it's just percentages, so this is really going to keep on, this is going to be consistent along whatever your damages are. So it's just like, hey, whenever you use this with somebody doing really good damage, we can expect these really good numbers from this. So I really like this one. Now the weaknesses, of course, it's only 10-second windows, right? What if that 10-second window pops? This is a hypothetical situation saying all I'm doing is just DPSing the boss very consistently 5k. There are no mechanics. There are no mechanics involved. That 10-second window didn't happen when I was running away from the boss doing a mechanic, freeing my partner because he was in a block of ice or anything like that, right? This is a hypothetical situation saying, hey, all I'm doing is DPSing the boss. So great. Now, so let's take a look at what this looks like with this one, with Night Fae, okay? So Night Fae. We read kind of the stipulations for Night Fae. The way that this ability reads, or what we should do, is we know that it prioritizes, let's talk single target. So this was a single target scenario. Let's talk single target here. We know that we probably want to refresh our bleeds. Even if it's not the best time, we don't want to refresh our bleeds in the middle. We only want to refresh at the optimum time. But with this ability, we know that, hey, I have my Night Fae ability coming up. I want to do the most damage. I don't want it to thrash. I don't want it to rake. What I want to do is I want to try to narrow down the spells that it will cast, because it's not going to refresh a bleed on there. So I might just say, hey, my thrash is doesn't need to be refreshed now, but it might need to be refreshed during that 4-second window. So I'm just going to refresh all my bleeds. Blah blah blah. I'm also going to Tiger's Fury. I don't want to waste this ability. I don't want to waste one of these casts to be Tiger's Fury when I could just do that myself. Okay. If I can do that, if I can satisfy all the conditions, and it does not regrowth, it does not moonfire, we should expect that it's only going to shred and bite. Okay. I do not know if that is actually the case. It's very easy to test it if you have PTR. Just fill up your combo points, fill up your bleeds without shredding or biting, and then use this ability and see how many shreds and bites that it did. If you can get bites and shreds equal to 16 casts, then we know that we can manufacture this to only do shreds and bites, and that's what we want to do. Okay, so let's say that's how it works, and we can make it function that way. Now, let's hypothetically say we're going to make a situation here where we have really bad RNG 3 times. This is a 5-minute fight. This is a 2-minute ability. We can cast this 3 times. So I'm going to say bad RNG because I don't really know if we can actually make it just shred and bite. Okay, so I grabbed some numbers from PTR testing. Somebody opened up their DPS meters, and I was able to grab some information. So let's just say an average shred is 1.191. Average bite is 7.5K, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so our really crappy hypothetical situation is we get 12 shreds and 4 bites, right? Something to be note about this ability is very inconsistent. Very inconsistent, total RNG, right? We are saying we're giving it really bad RNG also because, like I said, we don't know. What if instead of doing a shred, it does a regrowth? So instead of 1,000, we're getting 0, right? So that's why I did this really crappy hypothetical situation. But anyways, 12 shred cast, 14K, 4 bites, 30K. Total damage is 45,000 damage. Now, if we get the same crappy RNG 3 times in a fight, our damage is 135,000. So this is pretty good, right? Now, if we compare this to our Kyrian, our damage is 120. Okay, so this is giving us a little bit more damage with really crappy RNG. If we can satisfy the conditions. But it is not better than the Kyrian ability for total damage because we know total damage is 214. Okay. So, the end result of all of this information. I think the Kyrian one is underestimated. I don't think this one is easy to test and to really test because it's only testable in a raid environment. Now, with that said, I think this ability is actually very strong, but it has a condition itself. I think this is the raid covenant with conditions of, first, you need to be on the highest, you need to put it on the highest DPSer. Hopefully they're not a fire mage where they're able to do consistently damage that you can use because it's going to be a 10-second window. I'm sure weak ore will be made, but you don't know when that 10-second window will happen. Also, you do not want that 10-second window to happen when you are doing mechanic, when you are not able to DPS the boss. If that is a case, this ability is just out the window. Not good. Okay? Now, Night Fae we have some problems with Night Fae as well because this is completely RNG. This is a channel ability. What happens, for instance, if you're like, all right, cool, and this should not happen in a raid environment, a progressive raid environment, but anyways, what happens if you use the ability and your target runs away? You're just like, oh, crap, a lot of my abilities I want to use are I only have a certain range to use them and my target ran away. That should not happen, but that is something that could possibly happen. If it's, progressive, you should know. If it's progression, you should know what to use it. Now, we also need to test this. Can it only shred and bite? If we can meet those conditions where it only shreds and bites, then our RNG of this may possibly be more favorable, right? We may get more bites off. What if we get 16 bites? That's insane damage, okay? Now let's talk about AoE situations. Is this good in AoE? Probably not better than just... if in AoE situations, I would consider the Night Fae Covenant to be like our old Berserk. We don't use it. It's only a single target ability, so not great in AoE situations. Where the Venthyr, great AoE situations. Kyrian, decent AoE situations. Night Fae, not so much. So I know this video is probably quite long now. I just wanted to give you guys all the situations and all my thoughts. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for all your guys' support. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it. Go ahead and comment. If I failed to mention something, or if I sparked some inspiration, some thought of your own, let's have some discussion. Please leave that in the comments below. But thanks so much. Take it easy, everyone. Peace.